Hello, everybody, this is Tim here again, for another movie review. This time for a movie that's been out for a long while that I haven't actually gotten to. Um, I watched it once when it first came out and kind of had my own opinion on it, but then in later years I kind of changed my opinion. And it's Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, I'll just go ahead and give my thoughts. For people that haven't watched my Resident Evil movie reviews, or my old ones, they're pretty much the same as they are. My thoughts on those films are pretty much the same now as they were then. Like, as far as like my thoughts on the films as a whole, here's like my abbreviated reviews for those. Basically, the first Resident Evil I actually have a great time with. It's like a zombie B movie monster flick, even despite some weak CGI for the liquor. I don't mind it as its own movie. Resident Evil 2, once again, as its own movie, I can watch it all right. It's just like an all right action flick. Resident Evil 3, same thing, all right action flick. Even though I hate the clone ending. Resident Evil 4, I can watch as like a passable action flick. Even though the franchise is getting really thin by that point, the story's getting really stupid as hell. Resident Evil 5, the one where they're like all underground or whatever, what was it called, like Rebirth or something? I don't remember. But they're like all underground or whatever. It's got Leon Kennedy in it. That one sucks. And then Resident Evil Final Chapter, which I believe is part 6, that also sucked. Yeah, the Resident Evil films, pretty much only the first 3 are the ones that I can kind of sit through just as like action movies, as like movies on their own. They pretty much went nothing by the games and just took cliff notes from them. If you watch them, if you're watching them as just like a casual viewer and you don't really care about the games and you're just watching them as like Mila Jovovich like action flicks where you just want to see her kick ass and stuff, if you're just like a Mila Jovovich fan, which is cool, I don't mind her. I think she does better work in like independent stuff like the movie Dummy with Adrian Brody and like other more artistic stuff like Fifth Element and stuff. I think she works better in that kind of stuff, honestly, like at least performance wise, acting wise. But if you're just watching these movies just like Mila Jovovich action flicks, like B movie action flicks, then yeah, you'll probably enjoy most of them, to be honest. At least as maybe like guilty pleasures. You'll probably even enjoy the ones I didn't like. Just as like fun guilty pleasures as like B action flicks. Just like other people would like Stallone or Van Damme movies. I mean, yeah, you probably will. But at the same time, for me personally, as a fan of the games, it's hard for me to look past certain things in them, and so I can really only enjoy the first 3. It's just like standalone movies. Now, for this movie, Welcome to Raccoon City or whatever, they tried to make it more like the games just by the fact that they brought in some of the game's storylines. They didn't really stick to any of the actual stories from the first 2 games. They just kind of combined elements of them and just mixed stuff around and brought in certain actors to play the like characters from the games who are popular, like Jill Valentine or what the hell is his name? I forget the other character's name. Um, Oh, you got Chris Redfield in here. The guy who plays Chris Redfield has been in a couple things. He's like in the movie The Duff, and he was in like the Scooby Doo prequels they did on like Cartoon Network. He does okay as Chris Redfield. Leon Kennedy, that's it. I'm blanked out for a second. I don't know why. He's like the star of the game in 2 and 4, which are some of the best Resident Evil games. But the guy who plays Leon Kennedy here is really bad. I don't even think it's the actor's fault. It's just the way they instructed him to play it. He doesn't even act like Leon Kennedy or even seem anything like Leon Kennedy. He's just like a huge pussy the whole movie. And when he's not being a pussy, he's completely screwing things up all the time. They're like, Leon, you dumbass. Like every time they talk to him. At the end of the movie, the only thing he does pretty much by the end is he shoots a rocket launcher and kills a tyrant at the end, who I believe is the William Birkin character at the end, who's in the movie for like just a little bit, played by Neil McDonald, I think is his name. The guy who played like the bad guy in Walking Tall with The Rock, the remake. And they're pretty much like having to protect his daughter, similar to like Resident Evil 2. They like combine the story elements of 1 and 2. I don't know why. That's part of the weakness of this movie. That really hurts the movie. This movie could have worked if they would have. And the girl who plays Jill Valentine, once again, I don't think it's the actor. It's just the way they got her written. She acts nothing like Jill Valentine. She just walks around saying the F word like all the time. And I don't mind like cussing in movies or whatever if that's what you want to do. It really doesn't bother me. But when you just like constantly, that's all you say, and just to try to make your character look tough, it just comes off phony and stupid. And that's pretty much all she does. And a lot of the dialogue in this movie is just F that, F this. It just comes in forced to just try to force an R rating. Because there's not a lot of actual like gore violence in this movie for a horror movie. I'll say this, some of the special effects, obviously this movie was a low budget. I thought some of it looked good, like alright to good. The tyrant at the end in some of the scenes, he kind of looks like a video game boss almost, like video game CGI from PlayStation or whatever, maybe PS2. graphics. In other shots, he looks fine. Um, at the end, he just gets blown up by Leon Kennedy on the train, and they just get away, and the town, like Raccoon City, gets nuked. Like, they pretty much just, like, nuke the whole place, so they take, like, the ending of, like, Resident Evil 2, so there's no way they could do Resident Evil 3 now as an adaptation where they got the Nemesis chasing after everybody. Like, I don't understand, like, this problem with adapting Resident Evil stuff that Sony keeps doing or whatever. I believe it's Sony and, like, Screen Gems or whatever that owns the rights. They keep making the same mistake with this franchise. Now we got a Resident Evil TV series coming out on Netflix. The trailer actually didn't look too bad for just, like, a standard horror show, but it doesn't look anything like Resident Evil. I don't get the deal here with why they can't just adapt Resident Evil just as Resident Evil. I'm a fan, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and speak for most fans. Like, really, all most fans of this video game series want is just a strict adaptation of the game. Just do a movie that is Resident Evil 1, the game. It's the whole story is completely mapped out right there for you. And I've heard, like, Paul W. Anderson or whatever said back in the past, like, when he was doing his Mila Jovovich versions, like, if you just do it like the game, then everybody's going to know what happens. No one cares because everyone just wants to see the game in live action. It doesn't matter that we know what's going to happen. We still want to see that put on the big screen. You may have to change some stuff to adapt it strictly for more of a movie format, but for the most part, you would be able to keep the soul of the game because the game is pretty much made to be a movie, the first Resident Evil game, and most of them are. Um, where it's just a bunch of people in a house that is a spooky mansion that's infested with zombies. Keep it on a lower budget. You don't need to go big with it, and just have them like going through the house fighting some killer plants, some killer crows every now and then, and some zombies. Maybe throw in some crimson heads or whatever. I believe are in the later part of that first game, and then at the end, have him like kill Wesker or whatever, and then find out Wesker's still alive. That's another thing. Wesker in this movie acts nothing like Wesker. And in the bonus scene, he's like a pussy. And he's gonna be like working for Ada Wong, and he puts on the glasses because then he's gonna have red eyes because he's infected by the T virus or whatever. But he's like nothing like Wesker, who was like a total badass in the video games. Like the Wesker from the Mila Jovovich movies is way better than this dude. But yeah, and he felt more like the games than this guy. But they just basically just take like cliff notes of some of the random games like 1 and 2 and just like throw in random story elements, but they don't make it gel together as a story. And most of the characters don't feel like the characters except in name only. Like I said, the guy who plays Chris Redfield, he's okay. The Claire Redfield actress also thought she was fine. But other than that, I did not like Leon Kennedy in this at all, and I didn't like Jill Valentine much at all either. But yeah, by the time you get to the ending of the movie, as a film, this is a straight 0 out of 4. Complete waste of time. Once again, Resident Evil is such an easy thing to adapt. Much easier than something like Mortal Kombat that's got all these like robots and elder gods and stuff. And they're fighting for like the salvation or saving Earth or whatever. Like Resident Evil, just adapt the first game. That's all you need to do. It's not rocket science. Like screenwriters and stuff in Hollywood and studios make this so much harder than it needs to be. All you have to do is just adapt the first game. It's just a midway like budget horror flick. That's all you have to do. And then for the sequel, just do Resident Evil 2. That's literally all you have to do. Yeah, I don't understand. It's the same thing with like Warner Brothers in the DC universe. They make things so much harder when it would be so easy just to please most people with those movies. So stupid. But yeah, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is easily a 0. Unless you, the only reason to watch this is for a little bit of fan game service. As a movie, yeah, it's a straight 0. The effects are pretty bad. At the end of it, the tyrant monster just gets blown up with a rocket launcher after maybe a 1 second, not even a 1 second fight. Felt like it. There isn't even a fight. He just breaks into the train, grabs Claire, and then he gets blown up by the rocket launcher by Leon. It's the only thing he does in the whole movie. Yeah, total crap, completely crap. This is probably even worse, or almost. This is worse than most of the Mila Jovovich movies, just because it's more insulting, because they're trying to use some more elements from the games. In terms of ranking, I would say Resident Evil 1, the movie, Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, the one where they're in the desert, which is, yeah, number 3. Then I would say I liked Resident Evil Afterlife better than this, because that Wesker is much better than this one. Then even Resident Evil 5, the one where they're underground or whatever, I like that better than this one. I'm trying to decide, is this worse than Resident Evil The Final Chapter? I would honestly say yes, because at least with those Mila Jovovich movies, they're just like plain action flicks with Mila Jovovich, like straight up Resident Evil in name only. This is trying to be a little bit of a Resident Evil movie, completely failing. So in a way, this kind of makes me appreciate the Mila Jovovich, like Paul Anderson movies more. Like if I go back and watch those, and I can separate those completely from Resident Evil and just judge those as Mila Jovovich action movies, some of those later ones I might actually not mind, at least now, because this is freaking terrible. So thank you guys for watching, and